Welcome to the Horror Unmasked podcast,
where we unmask the monsters
and explore the lore.
I'm Amber.
And I'm Lily, and today we will be dissecting
The Craft. Let's join a coven. Sarah Bailey, a troubled teen girl who has previously attempted suicide, has just moved from San Francisco to Los Angeles with her father and stepmother.
Which isn't that far.
Isn't that far, no.
No.
But it is a big visual change.
Yeah.
Because those two places are very visually different. She enrolls in a local Catholic high school, but has trouble fitting in. During French class, her classmate Bonnie witnesses Sarah telekinetically causing a pencil to rotate while standing on its tip. During lunch, Sarah is hit on by a boy named Chris, the school's football star. She asks about Bonnie and her two friends, Nancy and Rochelle. Chris tells Sarah to stay away from the trio because they're witches. Bonnie tells Nancy and Rochelle that Sarah is the fourth who will complete their circle and make a full coven. After school, the three girls befriend Sarah and take her to an occult shop. The owner, Lirio, comments that Sarah is not like the other girls and says to her, "Maybe you are a natural witch. Your power comes from within." While Sarah leaves the girls to meet Chris, but refuses to have sex with him. However, at school the next day, Sarah discovers that Chris boasted to the whole school that they slept together and that she was the worst he'd ever had. Absolute dick. Absolute dick. But also makes me laugh because of who the actor is, and I'm just like, of course. I'm like, that motherfucker.
Yeah, that's crazy. Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle comfort Sarah and invite her on a field trip. They take the bus out to the country. The bus driver tells them to be careful about wicked boys, but they say that they four are the dangerous ones. Oh. While on the countryside, they call the corners and cast some spells. Rochelle asks for the strength not to hate those who hate her. Sarah performs a love spell on Chris. Bonnie asks for beauty inside and out, and Nancy asks for all the power of Manon. Crazy.
Yep.
Shortly after the spells are cast, they show signs of working. The girls go to Lirio's shop again, where Nancy finds a book about invoking the spirit. Later that night, the girls go to the beach and form a circle, calling on Manon. At the culmination of the spell, Nancy is struck by lightning.
Which is terrifying in real life.
Yes. Yeah. But the next day, the rest of the girls witness Nancy walking on water. And from this point on, Nancy's powers have increased.
Level up?
Yep. She gets OP. As the other girls begin to regret their decisions of casting those spells, Sarah tries to stop Nancy, who has become the leader of the three remaining coven witches, by binding her powers so that she won't be able to hurt others or herself. But this does not work, and the three other coven girls now hate Sarah. Nancy appears and tells Sarah that in the old days, if a witch betrayed her coven, they would kill her.
Spoiler warning. Skip ahead. Sarah returns home, where she is tormented by Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle, who taunt her using magic and intimidate her with threats on her life. Sarah arrives home and nobody is there. She is instructed to turn on the TV set and listens that her family went back to San Francisco, thinking that she had run away there and that their plane had had an accident without any survivors. Without a second of rest, all kinds of snakes and worms appear everywhere. The 3 other coven girls then appear. After a few seconds of intimidation, Nancy says that Sarah will commit suicide. Nancy later slashes Sarah's wrists and writes a letter in Sarah's handwriting stating the reasons of her suicide and blaming herself for Chris's death.
Because he did, by the way.
Yeah, I glossed over that a little bit. Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle wait for her to die. Nancy tells Bonnie and Rochelle to go upstairs to check on Sarah. Sarah is almost too weak to invoke Menon, but then she hears her mother whispering, "Don't be afraid. Reach inside yourself." Sarah successfully invokes Menon and is able to cast spells to fight back, as well as heal the injuries to her wrists.
Forced by a counterspell of Sarah's to see themselves and what they've become by catching the reflections in a mirror, Bonnie's face horribly scarred and Rochelle's hair falling out, Bonnie and Rochelle flee, leaving only Nancy. Nancy and Sarah have a showdown in which Nancy is ultimately defeated by Sarah as she binds Nancy's power to prevent her from doing any more harm. In the end, Nancy has been sent to a psychiatric hospital, and Bonnie and Rochelle lose any powers they had. They go to see Sarah and half-mockingly tell her not to be angry with them because when Sarah was made to believe that her family had died, it was all just an illusion. Sarah's father is packing everything in his car to move out of L.A. The 2 girls ask Sarah if she still has any powers, and when she shows no interest in continuing a friendship with the 2 girls who tried to kill her, they make fun of her as they leave, saying, "She probably doesn't have any powers anyway." On hearing this, Sarah makes a bolt of lightning strike, causing a tree branch to fall, nearly crushing the 2 girls, revealing that she does, in fact, still have powers. As they stare back at her in shock, Sarah warns them, "Be careful. You don't want to end up like Nancy." And smiles.
The end. Yeah, this is definitely like a... This is a hardcore, like, teen witch, like...
I love this movie.
You a bad bitch
I love it.
situation.
I do.
You know what I mean?
I really like it.
That's why I think you'll like the other one as well.
I also love their outfits.
Yeah. It's different, but it's still the same. It's got the same essence to it. But yeah, so this movie was released May 3rd, 1996.
90s movies. That's why I like their outfits.
Yeah. The director is Andrew Fleming. Distributed by Columbia Pictures. I have their budget, which was $15 million. What was their box office?
The box office was $55.6 million.
Which isn't bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Not bad for this movie.
Yeah.
I didn't know it existed until like a couple years ago. Yeah. And when I watched it, I was like, where has this movie been all my life?
I'm glad that I put it on the list, but you should definitely watch the second one.
Yes, I'm going to.
Because it's not that... The second one isn't that old. It's fairly recent.
I know.
Yeah.
Because like now that you said The Craft Legacy, I'm like, that does sound familiar.
Legacy. 2020
Yeah.
was The Craft Legacy.
I was going to say 2019, 20 something. Yeah. So.
And it's definitely a very good movie. It's got a good like retrospective to the original, but it's got a lot of the modern feel that you would want from that kind of film. So yeah, definitely.
But this movie is an hour and 41 minutes long. Rotten Tomatoes 57%.
Which I feel like they should be higher.
I agree. I feel like this should be in like the 70s at least.
Yeah.
But that's
like
fine.
74.
Yeah.
Feels good.
You
know.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Just swap the numbers. 75.
Yeah.
57, 75, same thing. Kill count, 4 people dead.
Yep.
And a whole bunch of animals.
Yeah.
Just like a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of dead animals.
Yeah.
Not in real life, though.
Not in real life, because this one actually, no animals were harmed in the making of this movie.
Unlike the, the last movie we did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah. All right. So, for our cast list,
Mm-hmm.
we have Robin Tunney. That's what I'm going with. As Sarah.
Yep.
Fairuza Balk as Nancy.
Yep.
Neve Campbell
Yeah.
as Bonnie. Rachel True as Rochelle. Skeet Ulrich
Yep.
as Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And then Assumpta Serna as Lirio.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I put.
Some Scream Boy.
Scream! And girl.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that so fucking... I forgot that Neve was in here. I was like, oh, shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
The two of them.
The two of them.
That's
Literally.
wild.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, I forgot that the two of you were
Neve
in
Campbell
this
and Skeet Ulrich.
film.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I totally forgot. I was like, oh, shit. That's kind
She
of...
just went Scream Boy.
Scream Boy.
Girl, it's also the main character of Scream
No, I know.
too.
I mean,
Yeah. I know.
I know.
All right. Hit me with some behind the scenes.
I got a whole bunch of shit. It's a lot of smaller notes, but there's many of them. So, to start with, the craft itself portrays brilliantly a group of teenage girls connecting with the occult in a sensitive and meaningful way.
I agree that it was brilliant.
A part of what makes this film so impactful is the fact that all of the witchcraft featured in the movie is based on truth.
Mm-hmm.
So the production team hired a real Wicca consultant
Yes.
called Pat Devon, who is also awesomely known as High Priestess of Covenant of the Goddess.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to ensure that the spells and incantations were realistic.
Nice. Which very much
Yes.
felt that way.
Yes. She even supposedly consulted with her coven her different covens in order to ensure that the chants in the film were all legit.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that modern witchcraft was so accurately portrayed in the film gave viewers a sense that what they were watching was real and gave teen girls an accurate look at what experimenting with witchcraft could be like.
Yeah. I will say.
The more intense sides,
Yeah.
maybe not as visually like in the film.
What? Okay. How do I put this?
This dipped more into the fantasy.
Yes, it definitely dipped more into the fantasy, but it also showed both sides of what witchcraft can
Yes.
be. Because, there are...
Jinxes and curses and all sorts of shit.
But that's... If you're doing it correctly, you don't really want to be touching on that.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Because if you do it wrong, that shit bounces back tenfold.
Yes.
That's why most people tell you don't fuck with that kind of
Not
stuff.
even if you do it wrong. It's just, I believe in everything you put out, you get back.
Yeah.
So if you're putting out curses and jinxes and hexes and all of that, it's going to come back to you.
Yeah.
In some way or another.
You have to be careful with what you are working with. There's a give and take of all sides.
Yes. Correct.
And they kind of show this in the film when the girls are forced to look at what they actually look like.
Mm-hmm.
And that, there's a side effect.
Yeah.
When you're trying to use it for personal gain, there's always a side effect.
Which is why, I like this movie because it is very much cautionary tale of do this shit correctly.
Yes.
Otherwise,
also do it respectfully.
Respectfully, for sure.
And that there is a difference between those who are born naturally with it and those who are learning or gaining it.
Have to work for it.
Have to work for it more. Think of the difference between a sorcerer and a wizard.
Yeah.
Sorcerers just naturally are gifted.
Mm-hmm.
Wizards have to learn. That's kind of what it is. The other 3 girls were all on the wizard side, whereas the one was more of the sorcerer side, naturally gifted versus having to learn how to be a part of that. So, all things considered, The Craft was not a big budget movie.
No.
Because there were...
Wait, what do you mean? It was $15 million.
But
right?
there were financial restrictions that the film had. And because it was being made at a time when special effects were more expensive and hard to come by than they are now, many of the effects involving creepy crawlies were actually achieved using real creatures. So according to the film director, 10,000 snakes were used on set.
10,000?
10,000
Oh
snakes.
my fucking God.
There were huge buckets of serpents lying around. But luckily, Robin Tunney, who had to deal with most of them, wasn't afraid of snakes.
That's good.
But yeah, 10,000 snakes
That's
were
insane.
used on set.
Forget about it.
Yeah, for real.
You would not catch me dead on that set.
So, obviously, it's a movie about witchcraft.
What?
It's a movie about the supernatural side of things. And often we hear scary stories about weird things that happen behind the scenes on horror movie sets.
Yep. Yes, we do.
And The Craft seems to have its own collection of bizarre occurrences too. According to an oral history of the film, some pretty freaky stuff went down during the filming of several of the ritual scenes. During the calling of the corners scene, when the girls have assembled on the beach to recite their incantation, the ocean waves kept putting out the fire they had made. According to the director, it was just odd things where the girls started the incantation, the waves kind of came up, and at one point a wave came and wiped out the whole set out. This happened despite the park ranger having said that the tide would not be coming in.
Oh.
So literally the park ranger was like, yeah, the tides aren't going to come in. It's perfectly fine. And yet the waves came crashing.
Yeah.
So
That's crazy.
when they say that it's real magic, real witchcraft that's being done, yeah. yeah. So
I wonder if any of the actors went home and like noticed that the spells they were doing were actually kind of working.
that I'm not 100% certain about that side.
Like Neve asking for beauty inside and out.
Yeah.
I mean, she is.
So, yes, like I had said, the fact that they have the witchcraft being portrayed accurately is
I
very
wonder if
important.
Skeet Ulrich was in love with Robin.
I know, right? Not only did the production team have a real-life Wiccan consultant working on the technical aspects of witchcraft in the movie, but actress Fairuza Balk, who played Nancy, was also a practicing Wiccan
Yeah.
at the time.
That checks the fuck out.
Balk was so immersed in the world of witchcraft and the occult that she also ended up buying the pagan shop she had visited during her time researching her role as Nancy.
She bought the whole pagan shop.
This store, called Pan Pipes Magica Marketplace, is apparently the oldest store of its kind in the U.S.
Wow. And Furs just has it, just owns it.
She owns it now.
Wow.
So, okay. One of the weirdest and most frustrating things that happened with The Craft is the fact that despite it sticking to the guidelines required to receive a PG-13 film rating, it was still given an R rating.
What?
So.
That's because it's about witchcraft.
So, the movie, intended to empower and inspire teen girls, was smacked down with a rating that would prevent younger audiences from being able to go watch it at the cinema. The director,
So it
Andrew
should have been
Fleming,
a higher box office.
Yeah. The director, Andrew Fleming, said that even though they respected all the guidelines, the MPAA told him that the film would be rated R no matter what.
What?
And Fleming suspects that this is due to the fact that the film involved girls and witchcraft, which he thinks the MPA wrongly viewed as a dangerous influence for young viewers.
That's so
Sexist,
sexist,
problematic,
discriminatory.
problematic just in general.
There's got to be
So their box
anti-religion somewhere in there.
Yeah. That's like a banning something for religious reasons.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a whole side of it that's its own problem.
Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Disgusting.
So, the chants and the incantations were all real.
Mm-hmm.
One of the witchcraft-related figures is made up. Menon, the god the girls invoke, is a fictionalized deity.
Yeah.
So he's not even real.
Yeah.
The director said the whole idea was to make up stuff because the god that they referred to in the movie is something that they had made up, because it might have been offensive to people if we had used real people's gods.
That makes sense.
So they created their own. One of the missions...
Could have fooled me. Manon sounds real.
For real. One of the missions the craft had was to stay as true to real life witchcraft as possible and not to offend anyone who follows this particular belief. So by making up the god, they were ensuring that no one would be upset or annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
It's also good because in some level of it, it's maybe why possibly some of the spells never fully came to fruition, because there wasn't a real god that they were praying to.
Mm-hmm.
So this film clearly had some otherworldly vibes going on.
What do you mean?
And it almost seemed like the spirit world was being awoken while the movie was being shot.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of the weird things that takes place behind the scenes was that a white owl supposedly followed the cast and crew while they were working.
That's awesome.
The producer, director, and stars of the movie chatted about their experience working on the craft.
Mm-hmm.
And Rachel True said there was definitely weird energy around, and we were followed around by a white owl to several different locations.
Oh.
So, no idea what exactly this owl was doing.
A god protecting
but
them.
It added to the mystery and magic.
Something protecting them.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely interesting. I'm like, that's wild.
That's
for
protection.
A white owl to
Yeah.
be following you?
Yeah.
For multiple locations?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So there's a scene. There's a classic teenage girl scene of light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Yes.
That happens in this film.
Yes.
So, and again, undoubtedly featured in many sleepovers. It's certainly understandable. Who wouldn't want to try levitating through magic?
Mm-hmm.
Rachel True revealed the secret behind this famous scene.
Mm-hmm.
A green screen was involved, and she had to lie down in a hydraulic lift.
Oh, hello.
So she opened up about the experience saying, I had some sort of metal thing that I laid in, and they put my clothes around that.
Weird.
And I remember thinking, oh my God, this thing is making my hips look 3 times wider than they are.
Girl, please.
True might have been self-conscious about it while filming, but to viewers it looked like pure, beautiful magic.
Yes.
And the craft used a mixture of real effects as well as specially crafted ones in order to make some of the most extravagant scenes come to life.
Mm-hmm.
No one can forget the infamous scene where Nancy undergoes a monstrous transformation, with bugs crawling out of her mouth and her hair and fingers turning into serpents.
Yeah.
This shot was achieved thanks to a lengthy process. According to Fleming, this was the most complicated scene to shoot, with Nancy being shot on the floor, and then snakes were shot individually. And then a very talented artist at Sony Imageworks put it all together. It took a lot of work for this shot to be pulled off effectively. So this scene had an extreme level of high technicality being placed into it in order to achieve that scene. But yeah.
Very cool.
That is all of my collection of notes. So what do you have for me?
Well, since Menon isn't real,
Yeah. You ain't got to worry about that motherfucker.
nope. I just have the history and lore of covens
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
On covens, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, well, don't you need a single witch first? And to that I say, patience.
Yep.
That's it. So, covens.
Mm-hmm.
Origins and early history.
Yeah.
The concept of covens has roots in European folklore and early accusations of witchcraft. The word coven itself stems from Old French, covent, or Latin conventus, meaning assembly or gathering,
Yeah.
but became associated with witches during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance because of, in the context of the witch trials.
Yeah.
So, we have the medieval witch trials, which was during the 15th and 17th centuries, where witch trials in Europe often described witches gathering in groups called covens to perform rituals, worship the devil, or practice magic, where these gatherings were said to occur at secret locations such as forests, mountaintops, or referred to as witches' sabbaths. But they were largely fictional accusations just to justify the persecution of women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely. Other cultural origins, there are some scholars that argue that these tales of covens may have been inspired by the remnants of pre-Christian pagan practices. One thing about this channel, we're gonna call out the fact that Christianity stems from paganism.
Yep.
And this is no different.
Yeah.
Where groups would gather to celebrate seasonal festivities or conduct rites.
Yeah.
But they were also demonized as witchcraft
Yeah.
by the Christian church.
Because anything different than them is evil.
Yes. But then we go into the Salem witch trials of 1692.
Which was its own fucking
Yeah.
clusterfuck.
Which was also during that medieval European witch trials era.
Yeah.
Just in colonial America.
Yeah.
Where accusations of group witchcraft also surfaced, but they weren't explicitly called covens.
Yeah.
These trials just reflected the lingering fear of organized witch gatherings. So,
And again, the persecution of women.
persecution of
Because 9 times out of 10, when these men were like, she's a witch, it's because she didn't open her legs for me. So fuck her.
women. Yes.
Get her killed.
Die.
Literally.
Okay. As for the modern revival of covens, the idea of covens as structured groups of witches reemerged in the 20th century. So I guess it was kind of gone for about 300 years.
Yeah.
But particularly through the development of Wicca
Yeah.
and other pagan religions. So Wicca was founded by Gerald Gardner, who he was born in the 1800s and lived most of his life in the 1900s, but he was known as the father of modern witchcraft and introduced the concept of covens in his writings, claiming to have been initiated into a surviving witchcraft tradition. He has a book called Witchcraft Today, which laid the foundation for modern Wicca.
Yeah.
But Wicca redefined covens as small autonomous groups of witches dedicated to the worship of nature and the practice of magic. So, no demon shit.
Yeah.
Like all of these people think.
Yeah.
But Gardner's covens incorporated elements of ceremonial magic, folklore, and pre-Christian spirituality. As for the organization of them, modern covens often depict having 13 members, but that's a pretty flexible number. Like obviously in the craft they only have 4. But it's interesting to me that it was the number 13.
Yeah.
But leadership is typically shared by a high priestess or priest with rituals centered around lunar phases and seasonal festivals like full moons, new moons. You've got
solstice,
Samhain. Yeah, just so many things. Just all based on the stars and the seasons.
Yeah.
That's
winter
literally all it
solstice,
was.
summer solstice.
Yeah.
All of those.
As for how Wiccan covens have spread, it's been pretty international, adapting to local traditions and beliefs, but also maintaining shared elements like rituals and respect for nature. So that's cool.
Yeah.
But let's see. There's a couple other important figures like Doreen Valiente, I believe you say, who also lived during the 1900s, collaborated a lot with Gardner and refined Wiccan rituals, wrote a lot of the liturgy still used by many covens today, and her influence shaped Wicca into a more inclusive and poetic spiritual practice. So, women, what? The last one was a guy. Weird. No, I'm just kidding, not weird. That's a joke. That was a joke. If you couldn't tell. Father, who I know is listening. There's also Margaret Murray, who also lived during the time of Doreen and Gerald, but was an anthropologist whose work such as the witch cult in Western Europe in the 1920s, popularized the idea of historical witchcraft as an organized pre-Christian religion. But her theories have been discredited. I don't know how.
Yeah.
But they influenced Gardner and early Wiccan movement. And then you also have some serious coven locations. You have Salem, Massachusetts, obviously.
Which has now fully embraced witch culture.
Fully.
Which
you go
is
there and that's
so
all it is.
Fucking hilarious.
Very infamous for 1600s witch trials.
Which is hilarious
Yeah.
that they're all like, yeah, witches.
Now a very
Like a
gigantic
metropolis.
hub for modern witches and covens.
Yeah.
And its history and cultural significance make it a focal point for witchcraft practitioners and scholars.
Yeah.
You also have New Forest, England, where Gerald again, he claimed that the New Forest was home to a surviving witch coven that initiated him into their practices. The evidence is shaky, but it's still a very significant location in Wiccan history. And then you also have Pendle Hill, England, which is associated with the Pendle witch trials of 1612. In this area in Lancashire, it's become symbolic of witchcraft history in the UK and a site of pilgrimage for those interested.
Nice.
In that. But yeah, lots of history. Very much just the practice of nature and self-expression turned into something ugly,
which it can,
which for sure
not everybody uses it for good.
No, but I definitely think that there was a lot of not understanding this specific religious craft, along with just wanting an excuse to persecute women. So that combined, just a recipe for fucking disaster. But yeah, I think a lot of people think that paganism and Wicca is scary and evil and bad, and it's not. Again, it can be, but so can any religion.
Yeah, and trust me, we've seen it from them all.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
Yeah. You got a 1 star?
I do. I have a 1 star.
Fabulous.
It's pretty good. 1 star. Okay. Horrible, horrible mess. This movie is pretty much about 4 girls who are goth-ish and try to be witches. Some are more into it than others. In the end, if you wanted to smack the clueless cast around for being arrogant adolescents, wait for a scene here with a beach full of dead sea life in which a witch proclaims, "It's a gift!" Return it. Must be a sad life when you live in a big house with a loving family. Hey, you're even on a swim team. Now wear black, chant some spells, and don't conform, unless it is in your inner circle of friends. Horrible, horrible mess.
You know, why do I think this is a guy who wrote this?
Probably. Probably.
I mean, it's, you also...
Again, persecution of women.
Yeah. Number one, girls are notoriously bad about trying to, like, socialize.
Yes.
And it's usually the first people that tend to socialize with them that they will, like, encase themselves in because they want to at least be a part of something.
But also, on the other side of that,
yeah,
if you do express yourself in a certain way and you're looking for people who are going to understand you, you're going to find the
those people
who express themselves in a similar way.
Yeah.
So, of course, they might look and dress the same.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you also have to understand, like, just because she's done sports doesn't suddenly mean that she's, like, can't be goth at the same time.
You can do sports, be goth, and do witchcraft.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so stereotype.
Like, expecting people to... I'm not going to look like gumdrops and rainbows 24/7. Like,
no. Just because I live in a big house with a loving family and I'm on the swim team.
Like, what is, like... You're saying, like, because of her social class that she shouldn't have been goth? Because that's how that works.
You can be rich as fuck and be goth.
Hell
Hello?
yeah.
Look at the famous goth people.
Exactly. Like, the point is that putting expectations like that are stupid.
I agree.
But, I mean... Also, you have to understand that one of the first people that she tried to talk with, was a dude and was sports related, immediately fucked her over.
Yeah.
So, like, why would she suddenly be like, I still want to be in with this crowd?
Mm-hmm.
When the 3 people who came to comfort her were the ones that were the goths and the outcasts were the ones
who
to actually
ended up being
absolutely fucking wild and not good people. But,
No.
you know, hey, shit happens and masks fall all the time.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Mm-hmm.
he still proved, even regardless, he still proved to be a dickhead. So
Yeah.
it's just, you know, you can't, it's not to say the sentiment of you can't trust anybody. But you have to be aware that anything can happen and that not everybody is
out for your best interest.
Like, coming to you fully
face value.
Like, yeah, there are 100% people who do that.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm one of them.
Same. I, like, when you see me...
That's what you get,
That's
girl.
what you get, bitch. Like... You get the wilder...
Other than, like, I am kind of shy when you first meet me, but,
same.
like, other than that...
Once you get to know me, that's it. Like...
That's all you... After a few interactions, I think you get it.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Like, when you... Obviously, getting to know people, you're going to be reserved to some degree. But, like, for the most part, visually, from a distance, you're going to be like, that's what that person's like.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it's pretty consistent. So, you just, you know, it's why we pick and choose our people, man. And that's also why we pick and choose which of those people get the fuck out of our lives when they fuck up.
Oh.
Because God fuck do we know how that works.
Yeah.
So
this movie isn't just about witchcraft. It's about choose your friends carefully.
Yes. Make educated decisions. But also understand that those decisions can also be wrong.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, it's also just people are mean in high school.
Yeah.
People are just
High
really
schoolers are
fucking mean in high
assholes.
school. Like, you might not find all of your people in high school.
No.
I'm friends with exactly one person from high school, and that's about it. Most of my friends came from elementary and middle school, and, like, now college and stuff. But, yeah, high school was, yeah,
And I don't really keep in touch with
any of them. Yeah.
Not to say that all of them were bad,
Right.
but just
Right.
like,
You're not really going to find your people. Unless you do. You know, it's different for everyone.
you know, like I'm picky about who I communicate with, but
Yeah.
also I'm like, yes, I am bad to communicate, but will communicate when like there's a clear, obvious back and forth that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I'm just like, I'll find my people when I find my people.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't that pressed about it, you know? And you also don't have to panic. You don't have to have a million friends or a shit ton of people around you to feel validated and to
No.
feel like you're part of something.
I'd rather have a close, small, knit group
Yeah,
versus I know everyone, but I'm not that close with anyone.
exactly. That's not worth it.
No. And I think that's the same for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't really understand how.
You have a pretty close inner circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anywho.
Yeah.
That's witchcraft, guys.
Hell yeah.
That's covens.
Yep. That's
yeah.
life, man.
I kind of want to join a coven. I think it'd be cool.
Yeah.
Not like this,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
maybe I'll go to Salem,
Maybe.
sniff it out.
Alrighty. Next week is our wrap up for the year and everything. We've got some updates concerning next year that we will be getting into.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. You can send us an email at horrorunmasked@gmail.com. You can follow us Instagram and Twitter at horrorunmasked. You can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, and YouTube at Horror Unmasked Podcast. And I think with that,
There's only one thing left to ask. Will you fear?
or will you fear not?